A group of young partygoers were headed to a remote island for a wild rave, only to arrive too late and miss the last ferry out. Refusing to give up, they stumbled upon a fishing boat at the dock and tried to hire the gruff captain, Rogan, to take them across. But the moment Rogan and his assistant Salish heard which island they were trying to reach, their expressions changed drastically. Without hesitation, they refused. As it turned out, the island was known among locals as the Isle of the Dead, rumored to be haunted by something far worse than urban legends, ghostly spirits with a thirst for blood. Of course, the group didn't buy any of it. They figured it was just a scare tactic to drive up the price. So, Simon upped the offer to $1,000. To their surprise, Rogan accepted. Apparently, it wasn't ghosts he feared, it was being broke. Just as they were getting ready to depart, 2 Coast Guards arrived for a routine inspection. Rogan didn't even flinch. He cranked the engine and sped off into open water, clearly trying to avoid them. Something illegal was likely stashed aboard his boat, but the party crew didn't care. All they wanted was to get to that rave. What they didn't know, however, was that this spontaneous detour was about to turn into a one-way trip straight into a nightmare. Meanwhile, back on the island, the wild party was already in full swing. A young couple decided to slip away from the noisy crowd and head down to a quiet beach to enjoy some alone time. The girl, feeling carefree, stripped down and waded into the chilly ocean waters. Her boyfriend was excited to join her, but the coldness of the sea quickly drained his enthusiasm. He sat on the sand, indifferent to her calls as she swam further out. As she moved deeper, the girl started to sense something lurking beneath the surface. Alarmed, she hurried back to shore, only to find her boyfriend was nowhere to be seen. Panicked, she quickly dressed and ventured into the dense jungle to search for him. Pushing aside tangled branches, she stumbled upon a decrepit, eerie wooden cabin. In front of the cabin lay an old, sprawling graveyard that sent chills down her spine, even in the bright daylight. Determined to find her boyfriend, the girl mustered all her courage and stepped inside the ominous cabin. The air inside was thick with dread. Suddenly, the door slammed shut behind her without warning, startling her, but she pressed on. Inside, she finally found her boyfriend, but something was terribly wrong with him. Before she could make sense of the situation, terrifying creatures emerged from the shadows, surrounding her. Soon, Simon and his group arrived on the island, with the Coast Guard hot on their trail, docking their boat on the opposite side. The group boarded a hovercraft and immediately set off toward the party location, following the map. Meanwhile, Rogan and Salish hadn't left yet. They planned to ferry Simon's group back later. Quietly, they carried a wooden crate onto the island, which indeed contained something dark and unspeakable. Anticipating the Coast Guard's pursuit, they intended to find a hidden spot to stash the cargo for the time being. As night fell, Simon and his friends finally reached their destination. To their shock, the party site was a complete wreck, no sign of anyone around. Confused and uneasy, the group wondered what could have happened. Suddenly, Alicia spotted a bloodstained piece of clothing lying on the ground. A chill ran down her spine as a dreadful feeling took hold. She insisted on searching for the others immediately. Simon and Karma decided to join her, while Cynthia and Greg stayed behind to keep watch. No sooner had the trio left, the couple sneaked into a tent, eager to deepen their private moment. Just then, Greg was suddenly hit with the urgent need to use the restroom and excused himself. Alone in the tent, Cynthia soon heard noises outside. Assuming it was just Greg playing a prank, she remained unaware that her life was already ticking down toward a terrifying end. Meanwhile, Salish was following Rogan's orders, carefully hiding the crate's contents deep in the jungle. Suddenly, strange noises echoed through the trees. Already terrified by the island's ghost stories, Salish panicked instantly. Before he could even get a clear look at the creature making the noise, he met a grisly end. Back on the boat, Rogan wasn't safe either. The monsters could swim, silently approaching the fishing boat from beneath the water, preparing to ambush him. Luckily, Rogan was alert and steady-handed. With a single shot, he took down one of the creatures. But there were more. Several monsters climbed aboard the boat in quick succession. Having braved storms before, Rogan showed no fear. He fought them off one by one, killing each as they came, whether alone or in pairs. Meanwhile, Simon, Alicia, and Karma were still searching the jungle for survivors. They came across that eerie, abandoned wooden house. Unaware of the danger lurking behind them, they cautiously approached the building. What they didn't realize was that a terrifying figure was silently watching their every move. Once inside, the trio didn't encounter any monsters. Instead, they found 3 survivors from the party. Karma immediately asked what had happened. The survivors remained tight-lipped, pointing to the camera nearby. It had recorded everything that transpired. At first, everyone was having a great time at the party. But suddenly, a horde of monsters appeared. Creatures that seemed to have crawled straight out of a graveyard, like zombies unleashed upon the crowd. They launched a brutal massacre, and only 3 people survived. The rest were mercilessly killed by the undead. The trio originally planned to escape by boat, but to their horror, the boat had vanished. With no other options, they took refuge in the eerie wooden house. Even with all the evidence in front of her, Alicia found it hard to believe. Could this horrifying scene be some twisted part of the party's entertainment? But Rudy, who had witnessed the massacre firsthand, was adamant. This was real. Seeing the 3 survivors shaken to their core made it clear they were telling the truth. Determined to regroup, they decided to return to the party venue to meet up with Cynthia and Greg, hoping to escape together by boat. When they got back, however, they found that Cynthia and Greg were nowhere to be found. Their attention was drawn to a toppled portable toilet on the ground, which seemed to be making noises. Working together, they flipped it upright and opened the door, only to discover Greg trapped inside, covered head to toe in excrement. Greg explained that he had been caught off guard while using the toilet when some disturbed person outside began violently banging on the door. The force knocked the toilet over, trapping him inside. Though furious and disgusted, Greg's misfortune actually saved his life. Once he recovered, his thoughts immediately turned to his girlfriend, who was still missing. The group immediately started searching for Cynthia, but to their horror, Cynthia appeared, now transformed into a zombie, and attacked an unsuspecting man. Just as the situation grew desperate, the Coast Guard arrived in the nick of time, saving them all. In a shocking moment, the officer fired again, putting down Cynthia. Her terrifying appearance was identical to the monstrous creatures that had attacked the party. Sensing that something was terribly wrong, the female officer quickly radioed for backup from the boat, but there was no response. The island's remote location meant that cell phones couldn't connect with the outside world. The only option was to escape on the fishing boat. The female officer, who had originally come to apprehend Rogan, now focused solely on getting everyone to safety. As they rushed toward the shore, they crossed a wooden bridge where suddenly a zombie lunged up from beneath, grabbing Karma's ankle tightly. Rudy, startled, fell to the ground, piercing his palm on a nail. The female officer acted swiftly, shooting the zombie dead. But no sooner had she taken down one, another emerged from the water. With quick reflexes, she delivered a headshot and, when her handgun ran out of bullets, switched to her rifle without missing a beat. After they helped Rudy free himself, there was no time to treat his wound. The group hurried onward. When they finally reached the shore, they didn't see Rogan anywhere. Only 2 zombies wandering around on the boat. Before anyone could react, Simon had already jumped into the water, aiming to get to the boat. The others tried to stop him, but it was too late. As soon as Simon plunged in, he spotted the zombies on the boat. He immediately turned around to swim back, only to see the zombies jumping into the water and heading straight for him. The female officer on the shore opened fire to cover him, but it was nearly impossible to hit the zombies in the water. Simon got caught by one of them, struggling to break free. Just when things looked grim, a beam of laser light targeted the zombie's head. It was Rogan, who had gone missing earlier. With everyone's help, Simon finally escaped the danger. Meanwhile, those on the shore also faced their own zombie threat. Rudy and Karma managed to take down one of the zombies successfully, but Rogan was caught off guard and got bitten on the arm. He quickly shot the attacker dead in a reflex move. Fueled by anger, Simon vented his frustration on the corpse once he reached the shore. But unexpectedly, the zombie still had some strength left and sprayed Simon's face with a corrosive, unknown liquid. The female officer rushed forward and finished off the zombie, but Simon's handsome face was already badly damaged. While they treated the wounds on Rogan and Simon, the female officer planned to return to her boat and use the communication equipment to call for backup from headquarters. For safety, she handed a gun to Greg and told him to come along. Once they made it onto the boat safely, she started the engine and headed back to pick up the rest of the team. After the 2 left, the group began discussing how the zombies had come to be, wondering if some kind of mutation was responsible. Rogan admitted he wasn't sure, but it seemed the rumors about Death Island were true. Under pressure, Rogan shared the island's dark legend. Long ago, a deranged Spanish priest was exiled there for committing a grave crime. During his exile, the mad priest killed the captain and his crew, escaping into the wild. He then enslaved the island's inhabitants, and anyone attempting to set foot on the island met their death at his hands. The locals still feared speaking his name, and it was said that even to this day, he haunted the island. Could all the horrors be linked to this cursed priest? Meanwhile, the female officer was still with Greg, and unsurprisingly, they encountered more zombies. While the officer unleashed a barrage of firepower, Greg chose to make a run for it. However, the zombies moved with terrifying speed, rivaling that of Usain Bolt. No matter how hard Greg tried, he couldn't shake them off. Just as he was about to meet a grisly fate, he hid behind a large tree, narrowly escaping notice. But once the coast was clear and he prepared to sneak away, luck ran out. Within moments, Greg found himself surrounded by a horde of zombies. His fate was sealed. As the two still hadn't returned, the others waiting began to grow worried. What if something had happened to them? Or worse, what if they decided to leave and never come back? With no weapons and no food, facing the zombie threat meant certain death. Seeing everyone panic, Rogan finally spoke up, revealing that they actually did have weapons. He led the group to that mysterious wooden crate, and when they opened it, they found nothing but Cuban cigars. They assumed Rogan was smuggling cigars, but little did they know, he was dealing in something far deadlier. Just then, the female officer returned with bad news. The two had encountered zombies along the way, and Greg's fate was unknown. Their patrol boat was destroyed by the Undead, and the rest of their team had vanished. With the situation deteriorating rapidly, Rogan had no choice but to come clean. The cigars were just a cover. The real cargo, hidden beneath, was a cache of weapons. The officer didn't say much more. Survival was the priority now. These weapons were a lifeline in the middle of a storm. She urged everyone to gear up quickly. They couldn't stay on the island any longer. They had to find a safe place and hold out until help arrived. After the police lost contact with the two missing, they had planned to send someone to search for them. And on this entire island, the only safe haven against the zombies was that eerie wooden house. So, the group decided to make their way there. Once everyone selected their weapons and geared up, the fully armed team immediately headed toward the cabin. What they didn't expect was that outside the wooden house was a sea of zombies. To make matters worse, more zombies suddenly appeared behind them, closing in fast. With no way to turn back, the group had no choice but to prepare for a deadly showdown. And as it turns out, fear comes from one thing: not having enough firepower. Now armed to the teeth, the group was like a whole new force. Surrounded by the undead, they fought harder, faster, and with more confidence. Each of them unleashed unbelievable combat skills, pulling off one slick move after another. In an instant, they turned the tide. Zombies were dropping left and right. Honestly, it looked like the ones who should have been running were the zombies. Karma, in particular, was on a whole other level. Wielding a shotgun like some kind of divine warrior, she tore through the horde, slashing four at once, then blasting away one zombie per shot, all with surgical precision. But the zombies weren't giving up so easily. They sent in one of their strongest to take her down. This one was different. It leapt into the air, spinning mid-flight with a 360-degree twist, and hurled an axe straight at Karma. But Karma didn't flinch. She jumped on the spot, and, midair, fired a perfect blast of buckshot right at the incoming threat. One shot, direct hit. The zombie dropped, lifeless. And just like that, the group carved their way through the chaos and made it to the entrance of the wooden cabin. Unfortunately, the front door was locked tight. Forcing it open would only damage the wooden barrier, making entry pointless since the zombies would easily flood in right behind them. Left with no other choice, the group had to search for an alternative entrance. Meanwhile, the number of zombies kept growing, forcing them into another brutal fight. This time, things weren't so easy. The fierce fighter with twin ponytails, who had just been cutting through zombies like a storm, was suddenly overwhelmed and swallowed by the horde. The others struggled to stay alive themselves, barely able to cover each other as their bullets were running dangerously low. Amidst the chaos, the female officer spotted a mutated teammate. With tears in her eyes, she made the painful decision to put him down. But in a moment of carelessness, she was knocked to the ground by a charging zombie. At the critical moment, Rudy fired his gun to save her, but in the ensuing frenzy, the two were separated from the main group. Fortunately, Rudy found a hidden entrance. Unfortunately, the female officer had run out of ammunition and was being cornered by several zombies. Before she could crawl inside, the zombies attacked relentlessly. Rudy fought with all his strength to drag her in, but the damage was severe. She lost both legs and, within minutes, succumbed to fatal blood loss. Meanwhile, the others found themselves in a dire situation. Their ammunition was completely depleted, and with no bullets left, their once fierce momentum, like God striking down all, had vanished. Only Rogan wielded his machete, struggling to fend off the relentless zombie attacks. But he couldn't hold out for long. Eventually, he was overwhelmed, knocked to the ground, and brutally torn apart by the undead. Fortunately, Rudy appeared just in time, bursting through the door from inside the house. Together, they managed to drag Rogan to safety and quickly shut the door behind them. For the moment, they were safe. Rudy and Alicia rushed to tend to Rogan's wounds. Losing 2 teammates in such a short span weighed heavily on everyone's morale. Simon, devastated by the damage to his once handsome face, even contemplated giving up on life, wondering what use there was in surviving this nightmare. But Karma, who had long harbored feelings for Simon, didn't shy away. Instead, seizing the moment, she confessed her love, and the two officially became a couple. Meanwhile, Rudy and Alicia noticed something strange outside. The zombies were dragging the bodies on the ground, seemingly organizing them. Though they didn't understand the purpose, it was clear that whatever they were doing wasn't good. The group quickly gathered their weapons and gear, preparing for another fight at any moment. Luckily, Rudy's backpack still held some ammo, but it was a mere drop in the bucket compared to what they would need. Amid the chaos, Alicia stumbled upon a captain's log, detailing the story of the crazed priest who killed Captain and escaped. It confirmed what they feared: the legend was true. To prevent any surprise zombie attacks, the group began thoroughly searching the cabin, looking for a defensible place to take shelter. After some searching, they finally found a room filled with countless corpses, severed limbs, and various experimental tools, clearly resembling a makeshift laboratory. It was obvious these were the twisted creations of the crazed priest who was responsible for creating the zombies. Meanwhile, Rogan was left alone in another part of the cabin when he suddenly heard Salish's voice. Dragging his injured body, Rogan cautiously opened the door to find Salish, but he was no longer human. Salish had already turned into one of the undead. Without hesitation, Rogan raised his gun and put Salish down. The gunshot drew Rudy over, but also attracted nearby zombies. Rogan, however, had no intention of retreating inside. Instead, he pulled out a stick of dynamite, clearly intending to take the undead down with him. He was ready to end it all, and he did. Rogan got his release, but in doing so, he doomed the others. The massive explosion blew open the wooden door and allowed a horde of zombies to pour inside. With no other choice, the group fled to the backyard and slammed the door shut, desperately trying to hold back the relentless undead. At that moment, Alicia spotted several barrels of gunpowder. If they could ignite them, it might wipe out most of the zombies. Unfortunately, there were no fuses. Determined, they returned to the lab, hoping to find something to ignite the barrels. That's when they spotted something writhing inside a glass container filled with red liquid. On closer inspection, they nearly screamed. It was a living, breathing zombie head. Karma instinctively pulled the trigger, and the red liquid inside spilled out. The moment it touched the corpse, the body immediately mutated, transforming into a zombie. It became clear that this red liquid was the key to reanimating the dead. Realizing the danger, everyone bolted back to the backyard and slammed the door shut, once again trapping the zombies inside. Just as the horde was about to break through, Karma spotted a hidden passage. The group quickly slipped inside, but Simon was grabbed by the zombies behind them. Knowing he couldn't escape, Simon made sure his friends got away safely before pulling the trigger on a nearby barrel of explosives, blowing himself up in the process. However, the passage was far from safe. Zombies occasionally emerged from the shadows, blending perfectly with the moss-covered walls. Before they knew it, the three were surrounded. To cover Alicia and Rudy's escape, Karma bravely stepped forward. But without her trusty shotgun, she was like a tiger without its teeth. Her fighting ability was greatly diminished, and she was quickly overwhelmed by the zombies. Just when things seemed hopeless, a man cloaked in black suddenly appeared, dispatching one of the zombies with ease. Though his face remained hidden, his silhouette unmistakably belonged to Greg. He motioned for the two to follow him, and without hesitation, they did. Led by the cloaked man, they arrived at an even more secluded chamber. Bones and corpses littered the area. The man beneath the cloak was Greg, or so it seemed, but something was off about him. When Alicia tried to speak, he remained silent. It wasn't until Rudy noticed a zombie hanging upside down that they realized this wasn't really Greg. To their horror, zombies had somehow learned the art of disguise. And the imposter wasn't just any creature. It was the deranged priest they had heard so much about. Before they could react, the two were captured on the spot. Following the priest's command, several zombies pinned Rudy down on a table, preparing to harvest his organs for their own twisted purposes. To make Rudy understand the grim fate awaiting him, the priest began to recount his dark story. Obsessed with discovering the secret to immortality, he had conducted secret and gruesome human experiments. His deeds eventually exposed, he was exiled from society. But during his banishment, he seized an opportunity to escape and continued his perverse experiments on this very island, turning the local residents into nothing more than his test subjects. After years of relentless experimentation, the priest finally achieved a breakthrough. He successfully developed a serum that could make blood cells continuously reproduce, the very red liquid stored in the glass tank. But this method came with a fatal flaw. Those revived by it turned into decaying zombies. Undeterred, the priest refined his process. By constantly replacing old organs with fresh ones, he eventually attained true immortality. Now, he urgently needed new organs, and Rudy and Alicia were the perfect candidates to serve as replacements. Upon realizing he was about to become a mere spare part for the priest, Rudy exploded with fury, breaking free from his restraints. Seizing the moment, Alicia grabbed a sword and fiercely stabbed the priest. The two made a desperate dash for the exit. During their escape, Rudy stumbled upon a grenade on a corpse. Acting quickly, he pulled the pin and threw it behind them. Just as they breathed a sigh of relief, believing they had escaped, the seemingly indestructible priest emerged from the blast. Without hesitation, a final brutal battle erupted. But Rudy and Alicia were no match. Rudy was struck down first, and Alicia soon suffered a devastating sword wound to her chest. Seeing this, Rudy instantly flew into a rage. Taking advantage of the priest's momentary distraction, he grabbed an axe from the ground and swung it with all his might, severing the priest's head in one powerful strike. But to their shock, even without his head, the priest remained eerily alive. With terrifying strength, he reached up and grabbed Rudy by the throat. And just when we thought all hope was lost, Alicia wasn't dead after all. Somehow, the stab wound hadn't gone deep enough. Gritting her teeth, she forced herself to her feet. Determined to end the nightmare once and for all, Alicia aimed to destroy the priest's head. She stomped hard on the severed skull lying on the ground, crushing it into pieces. Instantly, the priest's body lost all movement and collapsed lifelessly. This time, he was truly dead. Exhausted and barely able to stand, Alicia collapsed to the floor. After the chaos settled, the rescue helicopter finally arrived, though it was too late for most. In the end, only Alicia and Rudy made it out alive.